Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The morning sun streamed through the showroom's large bay windows, Prestige Motors, making the chrome and leather of the cars on display gleam. The air was permeated with the smell of new vehicles, a fragrance that symbolized wealth, power, and exclusivity. Vanessa Harper, the dealership manager, walked confidently between the luxury models. Every gesture of her hand, every word spoken, reflected her authority. She liked to think that here, she decided who deserved to be treated with respect and who didn't. The customers were her playground, and she had perfected the art of judging with a glance, often based on appearance, clothing, or the car they drove. That morning, a man entered the showroom. Marcus Bennett. His elegant yet understated appearance contrasted with the opulence around him. Vanessa observed him discreetly, her mind already classifying him. Without knowing his identity, she judged him, mentally reducing him to a simple curious customer or a passing visitor. She had no idea that this man was about to shake up all her certainties. Marcus smiled politely and approached a displayed car. His calm, collected posture betrayed a natural confidence. Vanessa, unknowingly, had just crossed paths with the man who would soon become the master of Prestige Motors. And she had no idea that she had just put herself in a position where her arrogance would be revealed to everyone. Le Showroom de Prestige Motors was a place where luxury was displayed in all its forms. The cars, precisely aligned, reflected the sunlight on their impeccable bodies. The leather seats smelled new and the chrome sparkled like jewels. Every detail was designed to impress customers, and Vanessa Harper, the director, was its soul and guardian. That morning, she walked the aisles with her quick, confident stride. Her gaze scanned each customer, assessing their style, their attire, and especially their supposed ability to purchase one of the showroom's most prestigious cars. Vanessa was known for her subtle arrogance and her ability to judge in an instant. Suddenly, her attention was drawn to an elegant man, simply dressed but with a natural charisma. His shoes were impeccable, his suit sober but perfectly tailored. He was approaching a high-end sports car, placing his hands on the bodywork with a respectful but confident gesture. Vanessa frowned. Probably a curious customer, or just an employee looking to impress, she thought. Without knowing it, she had just met Marcus Bennett, a black man in his 40s, with a calm and imposing appearance, but who was not there for ordinary shopping. Marcus was not a simple visitor, he was the new owner of Prestige Motors, who came incognito to observe his dealer and his staff. She walked towards him with her professional, but slightly icy, smile. "Hello, can I help you?" she asked, her voice soft but condescending. Marcus greeted her politely and replied, "Hello, I would like to know the characteristics of this model, please." Vanessa sized him up one last time, mentally noting every detail, his skin tone, his style of dress, his calm demeanor. She was certain of her judgment, this man probably didn't belong in her world of prestigious clients. She was about to impose limits she would have deemed normal for someone like him, without knowing that every word, every gesture would be observed and memorized. And in Marcus's apparent calm, a silent decision was forming. Whoever underestimated Marcus Bennett would soon learn a lesson she would remember for the rest of her life. Marcus Bennett approached a black sports car, his hands gently grazing the shiny bodywork. He examined every detail with a careful eye, noting the quality of the finish and the care taken in every element. Vanessa Harper stepped forward, her professional smile in place, but her gaze betrayed a hint of contempt. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked, her voice polite but tinged with condescension. Marcus replied calmly. "Yes, I would like to know all the features of this model, including its performance and customization options." Vanessa nodded, but her gestures were calculated. "Of course, but some models are reserved for our customers who really know their budget." Marcus smiled slightly, feigning ignorance. "I understand, thank you." At that moment, Vanessa thought he was just a curious customer or an employee trying to look knowledgeable. She couldn't imagine that this elegant and poised man was the owner of the concession herself. She led him to a less luxurious model, thinking she would please him while maintaining control. Marcus followed calmly, mentally taking note of Vanessa's every gesture, every word, every micro-expression. He wasn't offended or annoyed, but each condescending remark reinforced his conviction he was about to teach a subtle but memorable lesson. Meanwhile, the other customers and employees watched the scene with a mixture of curiosity and discomfort. Some sensed Vanessa's contempt, but no one dared to intervene. Marcus, meanwhile, remained polite and respectful, letting his outward calm mask the vigilance and determination bubbling within him. It was the first meeting, but Marcus already knew that this interaction would be the beginning of a revelation Vanessa would never forget. Vanessa Harper eyed Marcus Bennett with a mixture of amusement and contempt. In her eyes, he didn't fit the image of the usual customers of Prestige Motors. She had learned to read appearances and sort the good customers from the others, and Marcus fell, in her opinion, into the latter category. "This model is a little above what you're looking for, I think," she said, feigning authority. "But we have more affordable cars if you want." Marcus looked up at her, a slight smile on his face. "I'm open to anything. Show me what you've got." Vanessa frowned. Her mind had already formed a story. He didn't have the experience or the means to acquire this type of vehicle. Yet, she continued to guide him towards models she deemed appropriate for someone like him, completely unaware that she was approaching the dealership owner. With each sentence, Marcus took mental note: the condescending tone, the gestures of superiority, the barely perceptible sighs, the sidelong glances. Nothing escaped his attention. He understood that Vanessa was judging not the person in front of her, but the reflection of her own prejudices. The customers in the showroom were now watching with palpable discomfort. A few whispers circulated quietly: "Why is she treating her like this?" or "He seems to be bothering Vanessa." But Marcus remained calm, polite, and respectful. His silence and posture stood in stark contrast to Vanessa's arrogance. As she continued to enforce her boundaries, Marcus sensed the moment of revelation drawing near. He didn't want to impulsively humiliate Vanessa publicly. He wanted his lesson to be memorable, but fair. Every condescending gesture from Vanessa seared itself into his memory, every careless word brought the truth closer. The showroom was now bustling with other customers, but the attention seemed paradoxically focused on Marcus and Vanessa. Curious glances were fixed on the manager's every move, every condescending response she gave Marcus. A couple of middle-aged customers exchanged worried glances. "Did you see how she treats him?" the woman whispered. "Yes, and yet he remains so calm," replied her husband, visibly perplexed. Vanessa, focused on controlling the situation, didn't immediately notice that her behavior was sparking murmurs among the visitors. She thought her authoritarian stance reinforced her image as a competent manager. In reality, she came across as arrogant and unfairly judgmental. Marcus, meanwhile, continued to listen and observe. His apparent calm was a facade, a mask behind which hid meticulous attention. He noted not only Vanessa's words, but also her micro-expressions, the slight frown, the condescending smile, the slightly sharp tone of her voice. Every detail allowed him to better prepare the lesson he was about to give. A showroom employee, Tim, a young salesman, exchanged a worried look with Marcus. He wondered why Vanessa treated this man with such contempt. Marcus smiled at him discreetly, a simple reassuring gesture that said, "Don't worry, the situation is under control." The whispers were getting louder, but Vanessa remained deaf to it all. She was convinced of her judgment: Marcus was just an ordinary customer, of no importance. She had no idea that, in reality, she was standing in front of the actual owner of the concession, the one who would soon overturn his perception of power and authority. The contrast between Vanessa's arrogance and Marcus's patience created a palpable tension in the air. Every customer present could sense that something was amiss, but no one yet imagined the magnitude of the revelation to come. Marcus Bennett moved slightly away from the cars on display, pretending to examine other models. His eyes remained on Vanessa, however, observing every gesture, every micro-expression. He knew that the moment to reveal his true identity had to be carefully calculated. Vanessa, for her part, continued to speak in a dry and authoritarian tone. "If you really want to see our most prestigious models, you'll have to make an appointment. These cars aren't for everyone. Marcus nodded politely. I understand. I can wait, if necessary. Vanessa smiled inwardly, satisfied with her control. All right, I'll show you what you can look at today. She led him to mid-range models, figuring he lacked the ability or experience to be interested in high-end cars. As he walked, Marcus discreetly picked up his phone and made a quick call to his assistant, who was already outside, ready to prepare the official documentation and a few logistical surprises. Marcus knew that the humiliation, if it came, would be perfect, public, measured, and memorable. The customers around them began to exchange puzzled glances. Some whispered about Vanessa's attitude, while others noted Marcus's impeccable patience. He seemed calm, almost detached, but this apparent calm was merely a cover for his vigilance. Vanessa, in her arrogance, was completely unaware of Marcus's true status. Every condescending remark, every gesture of authority she imposed on a mere customer, only reinforced the future impact of her revelation. As Marcus followed Vanessa to another model, he told himself that the moment was approaching. Soon, Vanessa's entire illusion of control would crumble. And when that day came, she would understand that her arrogance and premature judgments had come at a price. Marcus Bennett stopped in front of a luxurious red sedan. His hands glided gently over the shiny bodywork, and his gaze remained calm but attentive. Vanessa Harper, confident she was in complete control of the situation, stood beside him, ready to deliver her subtle lesson in authority. "This is the model you can see today," she said, her tone firm but polite. "For the others, you'll have to make an appointment." Marcus nodded, smirked, then said, "Vanessa Harper, I'd like you to meet someone." Vanessa blinked, surprised by this unexpected statement. Marcus discreetly signaled to a secretary who entered the showroom carrying a carefully prepared official file. Vanessa frowned, curious but still confident. The secretary placed the document on the counter. Marcus invited Vanessa to read it. Her heart was beating faster, but she didn't want to show it. She quickly scanned the lines, then stopped on a sentence that froze her. "Owner of Prestige Motors, Marcus Bennett." Vanessa's breath caught. She felt her face flush, a heat of shame rising to her cheeks. Every word, every condescending gesture she'd directed at Marcus suddenly made perfect sense. She'd mocked him. Actual owner of the concession. The customers and staff in the showroom were now staring at her, some exchanging amused glances, others surprised. The room seemed to hold its breath. Marcus remained calm, his polite but firm smile contrasting with the panic visible on Vanessa's face. "I've been observing your behavior today, Vanessa. Every condescending word, every gesture of contempt. It's all been noted." The heavy silence was broken only by the light click of shoes on the shiny showroom floor. Vanessa, unable to find the words, instantly understood the extent of her clumsiness. The moment of her humbling had just arrived, and it was irreversible. The silence that followed Marcus Bennett's revelation was almost tangible. Vanessa Harper felt the floor give way beneath her. The entire showroom seemed to be watching her, as if every pair of eyes reflected her own arrogance and prejudice. Customers, who had previously kept a low profile, exchanged incredulous glances and barely suppressed whispers. Vanessa stammered. But I." His words hung in the air, unable to make sense of the obvious. Marcus, calm and imposing, stepped forward slightly. "Vanessa, I am the owner of Prestige Motors. You judged me before you even knew me. You imposed your limits and your condescension without any basis." Marcus's voice was calm and firm, but it carried a weight that made his words impossible to contradict. Each word struck Vanessa like an echo of the hundreds of micro-details she'd ignored that morning: his dry tone, his gestures of superiority, his barely veiled contempt. The staff and customers in the showroom realized the magnitude of the situation. The employees, who had long observed Vanessa's authoritarian and sometimes unfair manner, exchanged satisfied but respectful glances. The customers, for their part, sensed that justice had been served, in a subtle but resounding way. Vanessa felt her face flush deeper. Every second of silence felt like a public judgment. She had been humiliated in front of those she managed and in front of clients who were now aware of her arrogance. Marcus continued, his voice soft but relentless. Here, we don't judge people by their appearance. Respect and integrity are the core values of this dealership. You had the opportunity to correct your behavior today. From now on, everyone will be treated with equality and dignity. Vanessa, overcome with shame and the knowledge of her mistake, nodded slowly. She understood that no words could erase this moment, but that it could be a turning point for her, learning from her prejudices and evolving. In this showroom bathed in light and luxury, the lesson was clear: true authority is not measured by position or appearance, but by the respect one inspires and the justice one administers. Marcus Bennett had just reminded Vanessa of this, in an indelible and public way. Le showroom de Prestige Motors was now plunged into respectful silence. Marcus Bennett, his face calm and imposing, watched Vanessa Harper, who was trying as best she could to regain her composure. Every customer present could feel the intensity of the moment, aware that arrogance had found its counterbalance. Marcus took a deep breath and spoke, his voice calm but firm. Vanessa, I know you are competent and that you love what you do. But you let your personal judgments dictate your behavior today. Vanessa looked down, unable to deny the obvious. Every word Marcus said resonated in her mind like an inescapable truth. Here, Marcus continued, we don't just sell luxury cars. We must offer respect, dignity, and equality to every person who walks through these doors, regardless of their appearance, status, or background. Vanessa felt a mixture of shame and gratitude rise within her. She finally understood that her behavior had created discomfort, not only for Marcus, but for everyone who had observed the scene. Her lesson in humility was complete. She had been judged, exposed, and confronted with the truth of her behavior. Marcus gestured toward the showroom, including staff and customers. Every member of this team must understand that integrity and respect are not options. They are the foundation of Prestige Motors. And you, Vanessa, have the opportunity to show that you can evolve and become an example for your colleagues. Vanessa took a deep breath. Her cheeks were still flushed, but her eyes now reflected genuine understanding. She nodded slowly, aware that she had just received a lesson that would transform the way she led and interacted with others. Around them, the staff relaxed slightly, grateful that the lesson had been learned, but impressed by the subtle yet effective way Marcus had restored fairness. The customers, meanwhile, began to murmur with respect and admiration, recognizing that this moment was not just a humiliation for Vanessa, but a true demonstration of leadership and integrity. Marcus Bennett smiled slightly, satisfied. He had made his point: respect and integrity were worth more than arrogance and premature judgment. And Vanessa, for the first time that day, seemed willing to listen and learn. A few days after the confrontation, the showroom of Prestige Motors had already begun to change. Marcus Bennett had called a meeting with Vanessa Harper and the entire staff to implement a new policy for welcoming and managing customers. Today, Marcus began, his voice calm but authoritative, we are setting a standard that everyone must uphold, respect and integrity above all else. No matter a customer's appearance, status, or wallet, everyone must be treated with the same dignity. Vanessa, sitting in the front row, still felt the sting of her recent humiliation, but she was determined to show that she could change. She raised her hand and added, sincerely, I understand. I acted with prejudice and arrogance. I commit to correcting my behavior and serving every customer with equality and respect. The staff nodded, some still surprised by Vanessa's sincerity, but most recognizing that real change had begun. Marcus then gave them concrete guidelines, training on hospitality, protocols for each type of customer, and encouragement to report any discriminatory or condescending behavior. In the days that followed, the showroom returned to its normal routine, but the atmosphere was different. Customers noticed a warmer and more respectful attitude from Vanessa and the staff. Employees, for their part, felt valued and encouraged to act with integrity, knowing that Marcus was personally overseeing the implementation of these changes. Every morning, Vanessa took a moment to remember Marcus's lesson. She had learned that power lay not in displaying authority, but in the ability to treat others with respect and fairness. And with every smile from a satisfied customer, she remembered that moment of humiliation, transformed into a springboard to a better version of herself. Marcus, observing the scene, knew that the lesson had been heard and absorbed. His method had not been humiliating out of revenge, but instructive and fair. The showroom of Prestige Motors was no longer just a place of luxury, it became an example of integrity, thanks to the calm and thoughtful authority of its owner. A few weeks later, the showroom of Prestige Motors had returned to its daily routine, but the atmosphere was radically different. Vanessa Harper, now more humble and attentive, greeted each customer with a sincere smile and genuine listening. Gestures of condescension and hasty judgments were a thing of the past. Marcus Bennett, ever present but discreet, watched the staff interact with customers. The employees, motivated and inspired by the new integrity policy, provided exemplary service, anticipating visitors' needs without ever prejudging their status or appearance. The showroom shone as much for its luxury cars as for the professionalism and courtesy that reigned. Reflecting on this transformation, Vanessa realized that the humiliation she had suffered that morning had been a gift in disguise. She had learned to listen, to observe, and above all, to respect each individual. Her arrogance had been replaced by true authority, founded on integrity and justice. A client entered, elegant and confident, but Vanessa didn't judge him. She simply greeted him with respect and accompanied him to show him the most prestigious models. The client smiled, impressed by the warm and professional welcome. Vanessa felt proud, not of having imposed her power, but of having earned respect through her attitude and manner. Marcus, meanwhile, smiled silently from a corner of the showroom. He knew his lesson had paid off. Prestige Motors was no longer just a place where luxury cars were sold, it was an example of respect and integrity, where it was understood that true authority came from justice and dignity granted to all. The transformation was complete. Vanessa had learned that judging someone by their appearance was a mistake, that humility could be combined with professionalism, and that true power lay in the ability to inspire respect rather than fear. And in that light-filled showroom, among the gleaming cars, Marcus Bennett watched with satisfaction. The owner and his team had rediscovered what really matters: respect, integrity, and dignity.